The war had been going on for 15 years. 15 long, bloody years of battles over a mining colony that nobody even wanted anymore. The Draxian collective and humanity had been locked in a stalemate that was costing both sides everything. Millions dead, economies struggling, families torn apart. And for what? Nobody could even remember how it started anymore. Laura Bennett had spent the last 5 years trying to end it. She wasn't military. She'd never fired a weapon in her life. She was a diplomat, a negotiator, someone who genuinely believed that any conflict could be solved if people just sat down and talked honestly with each other. Her colleagues at the Earth Diplomatic Corps thought she was naive. Her military escorts called her idealistic. But Laura didn't care. She'd seen too many flag-draped coffins, too many children who'd never meet their parents, too many families destroyed by a war that had stopped making sense years ago. "Mom, do you have to go?" her daughter Katie asked the night before Laura left for Haven's rest station. The girl was 12, old enough to understand that diplomatic missions to war zones were dangerous. Laura hugged her tight. "Yes, sweetheart, I have to try. If there's even a chance we can end this war, I have to take it." Her son Tommy, only 8 years old, didn't understand the politics. He just knew his mom was leaving again. "Will you be back for my birthday?" "I'll be back in 2 weeks. Plenty of time." Laura smiled, though her husband David saw the worry in her eyes. "Promise me you'll be careful," David said later that night. The Draxians agreed to meet on neutral ground. Haven's Rest is a diplomatic station. I'll be surrounded by witnesses from a dozen different species. It's as safe as these things get. She kissed him. Besides, they want peace too. Their people are tired of dying just like ours are. The journey to Haven's Rest took 3 days. Laura traveled on an unarmed transport, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every communication channel. Her security detail consisted of 2 guards who carried no weapons heavier than sidearms. She wanted the Draxians to see that Earth was serious about peace. When she arrived at the station, the Draxian delegation was already waiting. Chairman Vector stood at the center, surrounded by his war council. He was an imposing figure, nearly 7 feet tall with scaled skin that looked like natural armor. Laura walked into the council chamber alone. Just her data pad with Earth's peace proposal, and her belief that reasonable people could end this nightmare. "Chairman Vector," she said, extending her hand in a human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Vector didn't take her hand. He simply stared at her with cold, reptilian eyes. "Present your terms." Laura took a deep breath and began. She spoke for 20 minutes, laying out Earth's proposal. Complete withdrawal from the disputed mining colony. Reparations for Draxian losses totaling billions of credits. New trade agreements that would benefit both species. Mutual defense pacts. Cultural exchange programs. Everything the Draxians had demanded over the years. "Our governments have been fighting for 15 years, Laura said, her voice passionate. 15 years of death and destruction. For what? A colony neither of us even needs? Chairman, both our peoples are exhausted. Children are growing up knowing only war. Families are being destroyed. We can end this today. Right here. Right now." She pulled up images on her data pad. Human children orphaned by the war. Draxian civilians fleeing bombardments. Cities on both sides reduced to rubble. These people deserve better. They deserve peace. And we have the power to give it to them. The council chamber was silent. Laura thought she saw something in Vector's expression. Consideration? Doubt? For just a moment, she believed she'd gotten through to him. Then Vector stood. He reached his belt and drew his plasma sidearm. "Chairman, were you?" Laura started to say. The weapon fired. The plasma bolt hit Laura square in the forehead. She fell backward, dead before she hit the floor. The data pad clattered beside her, still displaying images of children who deserved peace. The other council members sat frozen in shock. This was a diplomatic station. Neutral ground. You didn't kill envoys. You didn't murder people who came in peace. Vector holstered his weapon calmly. "Payment for Draxian honor," he announced. "Return her body to Earth." Let them know what happens to those who presume to dictate terms to the Draxian Collective. The news reached Earth 2 days later. Admiral Richard Cole was in a strategy meeting when his aide rushed in with the report. He read it twice, not believing what he was seeing. Laura Bennett, dead, murdered during peace negotiations, shot in the head by the chairman himself. Cole had met Laura once at a military briefing. She'd argued passionately for diplomatic solutions while he presented tactical options. They disagreed on almost everything, but he'd respected her conviction, her genuine belief that peace was possible. Now she was dead, murdered for trying to end a war. The Earth government went silent. Every diplomatic channel closed. Every communication request from the Draxians went unanswered. No statements. No threats. Just silence. David Bennett received his wife's body 3 days later. Katie and Tommy stood beside him at the funeral, not understanding why their mother wasn't coming back, why she'd broken her promise about Tommy's birthday. While the family mourned, Admiral Cole sat in his office, reviewing military reports. For 15 years, Earth had fought with restraint, limited engagements, rules of warfare, trying to minimize casualties. Laura had been Earth's conscience, the voice reminding them that the Draxians were people too, that peace was possible, that violence should always be the last resort. They'd killed that voice, shot it in the head, and sent it home as a message. Cole opened a communication channel to every Earth military installation. His message was simple and cold. You killed peace. Now you get war. Admiral Richard Cole had been fighting wars for 35 years. He'd commanded fleets, planned strategies, made impossible decisions, but he'd always followed the rules, the laws of war, the protocols that separated soldiers from murderers. Those rules died with Laura Bennett. He stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest military command in Earth's government. On the screen behind him was footage from Haven's rest station, Laura extending her hand in greeting, Vector drawing his weapon, the shot, her body falling. For 15 years, we've been fighting with one hand tied behind our backs, Cole said, his voice quiet but hard as steel. We avoided civilian targets. We followed engagement protocols. We gave quarter when asked. We fought honorably because we believed the Draxians would do the same. He gestured at Laura's body on the screen. They killed our peacemaker, a civilian, a mother, someone who came unarmed to give them everything they demanded, and they executed her like it was nothing. The Joint Chiefs were silent. They'd all read the reports, all watched the footage, all felt the same cold rage. I'm asking for authorization to remove all previous combat restrictions. Cole continued. No more limited engagements. No more rules of engagement. The only objective is to destroy the Draxian Collective's ability to make war. I don't care how we do it. General Patricia Hayes, head of ground forces, spoke up. Admiral, if we remove all restrictions, the casualties will be military only. Cole interrupted. I'm not asking permission to murder civilians. I'm asking permission to stop fighting nice. The Draxians think we've been giving them our best. They have no idea what Earth is actually capable of. The vote was unanimous. Captain Brandon Walsh got his new orders while his ship, the destroyer Relentless, was on patrol near the front lines. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. All previous rules of engagement are hereby suspended. Any Draxian military asset is considered a valid target. Engagement may occur without warning. Retreat is no longer required when outnumbered. Prototype weapon systems are authorized for combat deployment. Mission objective: total destruction of enemy war-making capability by any means necessary. Brandon had been commanding the Relentless for 8 years. In that time, he'd fought by the book. He'd held fire on targets that weren't explicitly military. He let damaged enemy ships retreat. He'd followed every protocol designed to minimize the war's brutality. Sir, are these orders correct? His executive officer asked, reading over his shoulder. They're correct. Brandon looked at his crew. Good people. Soldiers who've been fighting a limited war, because that's what Earth asked of them. Tactical, I want a full scan of this sector. Every Draxian military installation, supply depot, patrol route, everything. "What are we looking for, Captain?" "Targets." Brandon smiled, but there was no humor in it. "We're going hunting." Within 48 hours, Earth ships began appearing across Draxian space, using tactics that shocked everyone who witnessed them. Commander Jennifer Hayes led a stealth strike team to a Draxian supply depot near their core worlds. Before the war, such a mission would have required approval from 3 different command levels: risk assessment, collateral damage projections, contingency plans for every possible scenario. Her new orders were simple: destroy the depot, return home. Her team infiltrated under cover of a sensor blackout created by new jamming technology the Draxians had never seen before. They didn't announce themselves, didn't demand surrender. They simply planted fusion charges throughout the facility and left. The depot went up like a miniature sun. The explosion was so massive that sensor stations 3 systems away detected it. 15 billion credits worth of military supplies. Gone in an instant. When Draxian Command demanded an explanation, Earth's response was automated. You wanted war. You killed the person who came to give you peace. Now you get what you asked for. The Draxian War Council reviewed the attacks with growing alarm. In just 2 days, they lost more assets than in the previous 6 months of fighting. Earth ships were appearing in places they shouldn't be able to reach, using weapons that shouldn't exist, fighting with an aggression they'd never shown before. How are they doing this? One council member demanded. Our intelligence report said Earth's military capability was. Our intelligence was wrong, another interrupted. Or rather, Earth let us believe what they wanted us to believe. They pulled up combat footage from previous years. Earth ships fighting conservatively, using weapons that were powerful but not exceptional, tactics that were effective but predictable. It looked like a military force at its limits. Now they saw the truth. Those old weapons? Obsolete technology Earth had been using because they didn't need anything better. Those conservative tactics? Restraint, not necessity. That predictable strategy? Earth being nice. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper piloted his fighter on a strike mission against a Draxian shipyard. His orders were different than any he'd received before. No warning shots. No demand for surrender. Just destroy the shipyard. His squadron appeared on sensors and immediately opened fire with new weapons that burned through shields like they weren't there. The shipyard, which intelligence said could withstand sustained bombardment, crumbled in minutes. As they left, Ryan saw escape pods launching from the dying station. Military personnel abandoning ship. In the old days, he would have waited, maybe even assisted with rescue. Now he just watched them drift. They'd live, but they wouldn't be building any more warships. Back on Earth, Admiral Cole watched reports flowing in from across Draxian space. 15 major military installations destroyed. 23 supply depots eliminated. 42 patrol groups ambushed and obliterated, all in 72 hours. His aide approached nervously. Admiral, the Draxian government is trying to open negotiations. They're asking for a ceasefire to discuss terms. Cole didn't even look up from his reports. Send them the automated response. The message played. You wanted war. You killed the person who came to give you peace. Now you get what you asked for. The Draxians had thought they were fighting Earth's best. They were wrong. They'd been fighting Earth's mercy. Now mercy was dead, shot in the head on a diplomatic station. And the Draxian collective was about to learn what humanity looked like when they stopped being nice. Admiral Cole's strategy was brutally simple. He wasn't trying to conquer Draxian territory. He wasn't trying to occupy their worlds or subjugate their people. He was systematically erasing their ability to make war. Every military installation, every shipyard, every weapons factory, every supply route. If it supported the Draxian war machine, it was a target. Captain Brandon Walsh received orders to take his fleet to Praxis 7, an industrial world deep in Draxian space. The planet produced 40% of the collective's military equipment. Warships, weapons, armor, ammunition. Everything the Draxian military needed flowed from Praxis 7's massive manufacturing complexes. Sir, Praxis 7 has a civilian population of 8 million, his tactical officer pointed out. If we bombard from orbit, We're not bombarding cities. Brandon cut him off. We're destroying factories. There's a difference. The fleet arrived in system and immediately began targeting every manufacturing facility. Brandon's orders were clear. Destroy the industrial capability. Spare the population. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. Brandon watched from his command chair as precision strikes turned factories into rubble. Warehouses full of military equipment exploded in massive fireballs. Transportation hubs that moved weapons and supplies were reduced to twisted metal. But the residential districts? Untouched. The hospitals, schools, parks, all intact. Earth was destroying Praxis 7's ability to make war, not punishing its people. When the attack ended, Brandon opened a communication channel to the planet's surface. People of Praxis 7, this is Captain Brandon Walsh of the Earth Destroyer Relentless. Your military production facilities have been destroyed. Your cities and homes have not been targeted. If you wish to evacuate to neutral space, Earth ships will escort you safely. We are not at war with you. We are at war with a government that murdered our diplomat. The response came from the planet's civilian governor, not a military commander. Why? Why destroy our world but spare our people? Because Laura Bennett came to bring peace to everyone, Draxians included, Brandon replied. She wanted to end the suffering on both sides. Your leaders killed her for it. We're making sure they can't kill anyone else. Across Draxian space, the same pattern repeated. Earth forces appeared without warning, destroyed military and industrial targets with terrifying precision, then left. Civilians were not only spared but actively protected. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper found himself escorting a convoy of Draxian refugee ships fleeing toward neutral territory. His fighter squadron flew alongside the civilian transports, protecting them from their own military forces who called them deserters and traitors. Why are you doing this? A Draxian captain asked over the communication channel. We're your enemy. Ryan thought about Laura Bennett, about how she died, trying to save people on both sides. Your leaders are our enemy. You're just people trying to survive. Our diplomat understood that. She died trying to protect you as much as us. The Draxian Collective's central government tried desperately to stop the hemorrhaging. They ordered colonies to stay. They threatened families of those who fled. They deployed military forces to prevent evacuations. Earth's response was swift and brutal. Any Draxian military unit that fired on civilian transports became an immediate target. Commander Jennifer Hayes led a strike team that destroyed an entire patrol group after they opened fire on refugee ships. Target neutralized, she reported coldly. Civilian transports are free to proceed. The Draxian War Council watched their empire crumble. In 3 months, they'd lost 70% of their industrial capacity. Half their colonies had declared independence or surrendered to Earth. Their own people were fleeing by the millions. Chairman Vector stood before the council, still defiant. We cannot show weakness. Draxian honor demands we fight to the last. Honor, one council member shouted. You murdered an unarmed diplomat and called it honor. Now our entire civilization is collapsing because of your pride. We are Draxians. We do not surrender primitives. But the cracks were showing. The collective was fracturing. Colonial governors were making peace with Earth independently. Military commanders were refusing orders. The civilian population had stopped believing in the war. Admiral Cole monitored the situation from Earth Command. His aide brought daily reports of destroyed targets, surrendered colonies, and refugee movements. Admiral, some of the other species are calling our tactics excessive, the aide reported. They're saying we're being too brutal. Cole looked at the picture on his desk. Laura Bennett shaking hands with Draxian trade delegation 2 years ago, back when peace seemed possible, before Vector decided honor mattered more than lives. Excessive, Cole said quietly. We could glass their planets from orbit. We could target civilians. We could do to them what they've done in wars with other species. But we're not. We're destroying military targets and letting their people go free. If that's excessive, they can file a complaint. He turned to his aide. How many Earth personnel have we lost in the last 3 months? 437, sir. Mostly in strikes against fortified positions. And Draxian military casualties? Estimated at 50,000. But civilian casualties are minimal. Less than 1,000, mostly accidental. Cole nodded. Keep it that way. We're not monsters. We're just done being nice. On Praxis 7, the civilian population emerged from their shelters to find their cities intact, but their factories destroyed. The governor broadcast a message to the remaining Draxian government. The war is over for us. Earth has proven they can destroy our military capability without harming our people. They've shown more concern for Draxian civilians than our own leaders have. I'm opening negotiations for peaceful surrender. 3 other industrial worlds followed within days. Then mining colonies. Then agricultural systems. The Draxian collective was dissolving from within, not because Earth conquered it, but because its own people chose peace over pride. Chairman Vector watched his empire collapse and still refused to surrender. He'd killed Earth's peacemaker to defend Draxian honor. Now that same honor was destroying everything he'd tried to protect. But he had one more card to play. One final, desperate act. If he couldn't win the war, he'd make Earth pay for fighting it. 6 months into Earth's unrestricted campaign, the Draxian collective was dying. Not from conquest, but from self-destruction. Colonies were declaring independence. Military units were deserting. The civilian population had lost faith in their government completely. Chairman Vector sat in his command center on the Draxian homeworld, watching his empire crumble on every screen. 80% of their military capability gone. The economy in ruins. His own council members openly defying his orders. We must negotiate, one advisor pleaded. The people are starving. Our military is fractured. We cannot sustain this war any longer. Vector slammed his fist on the table. We are Draxians. We do not beg for peace from those who should be begging us. Those who? Another council member shouted. The humans who are systematically dismantling our civilization while keeping our civilians safe? The enemy who shows more mercy to our people than you do. The argument raged for hours. Finally, Vector made a decision that would seal his fate. If he could win the war, he'd make Earth hurt the way he was hurting. He'd make them pay in blood. Prepare a strike force, he ordered. Target the Earth colony of New Vancouver. His military commander went pale. Sir, that's a civilian colony. 800,000 non-combatants. If we attack. Do it. Let Earth know what it costs to humiliate the Draxian collective. New Vancouver was a peaceful world on the edge of Earth territory. Farms, small towns, families who'd never seen combat. Their defenses were minimal because they'd never needed more. The war had always been far away. Captain Brandon Walsh's fleet was 3 hours away when the distress call came through. His communications officer's face went white as she listened to the transmission. Sir, New Vancouver is under attack. Draxian forces. They're bombarding civilian centers. Brandon felt his blood run cold. Get me Admiral Cole. Now. And plotted jump to New Vancouver, maximum speed. Sir, at maximum speed, our engines... I don't care if we burn out every reactor on every ship. Get us there. The fleet jumped, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. But Brandon knew they wouldn't arrive in time. 3 hours. In 3 hours, a lot of people could die. On New Vancouver, the attack was devastating. Draxian warships appeared in orbit and opened fire on cities. Not factories, not military bases. Cities full of families. Governor Rachel Martinez tried to coordinate evacuations while bombs fell around her. Get everyone to the shelters. Move, move. The colony's defensive satellites were destroyed in the first minutes. Their small security force fought back with everything they had, but they were hopelessly outmatched. 50,000 people died in the first hour. Then something unexpected happened. The Draxian bombardment suddenly stopped. Not all of it, but half the attacking fleet ceased fire and began broadcasting on all channels. This is Fleet Commander Krentalk of the Draxian Navy. I am ordering immediate ceasefire. This attack is murder, not warfare. I will not be part of this. On the other Draxian ships, loyal to Vector, commanders screamed at Krentalk to resume firing. When he refused, they made a choice that shocked everyone watching. They opened fire on Krentalk's ships. The Draxian military tore itself apart in the skies above New Vancouver. Half the fleet tried to stop the bombardment, while the other half continued the attack and fought their own brothers. Krentalk's forces positioned themselves between the Loyalist ships and the colony below, using their own hulls as shields. Draxian crews died protecting the humans they'd been ordered to kill. When Brandon Walsh's fleet arrived, he found a battle unlike anything he'd seen in 15 years of war. Draxian ships fighting each other, some protecting New Vancouver. Others tried to destroy it. "Sir, what are our orders?" his tactical officer asked, staring at the chaos on the sensors. Brandon made a split-second decision that would define the rest of the war. All ships, broadcast on all frequencies. Any vessel defending New Vancouver is under Earth protection. Anyone firing on those defenders answers to us. He opened a direct channel to Krentalk. "Commander, this is Captain Walsh of the Earth Fleet. We're here to help. Transmit your tactical data, and we'll coordinate." There was a pause. Then Krentalk's voice came through, heavy with emotion. "You would fight alongside us? After everything we've done? You're protecting civilians from a war crime. That makes you an ally." Brandon pulled up targeting solutions. "Now let's end this." Earth ships and rebel Draxian vessels fought side by side against the Loyalists. It was chaotic, unprecedented, and absolutely necessary. The battle raged for 2 more hours before the last Loyalist ship was destroyed or driven off. When the fighting finally ended, Brandon's ship pulled alongside Krentalk's damaged flagship. The Draxian commander requested a direct communication. Krentalk appeared on screen, looking exhausted and haunted. "Captain Walsh, I cannot undo what my people did to your diplomat. I cannot bring back the 50,000 who died today because of my chairman's madness. But I can offer you something." "What's that?" "Chairman Vector, the man who murdered your Laura Bennett, who ordered this atrocity, who refused every chance for peace because his pride mattered more than our people's lives." Krentalk's expression hardened. "I'm leading a military coup. We're arresting him and his loyalists, and we're offering Earth an unconditional surrender." Brandon thought about Laura Bennett, murdered for trying to bring peace, about the 50,000 on New Vancouver who died today, about 15 years of war that never had to happen. "Commander, we appreciate the offer, but we don't want your surrender." Brandon's voice was firm. "We want justice, and we want to make sure this never happens again." "What are you asking for?" "A trial, public, for everyone to see. Let the galaxy watch Chairman Vector answer for his crimes." Brandon paused. "And let your people see what their leader's honor cost them." Krentalk nodded slowly. "It will be done." The Draxian collective split that day. Krentalk's faction arrested Vector and the loyalists who'd supported him. They offered Earth not just surrender, but partnership in rebuilding what the war had destroyed. And Chairman Vector, who'd killed an unarmed diplomat to defend his honor, was taken into custody to face judgment for everything he'd done. The trial of Chairman Vector was held on Earth, in the city of Geneva, where humanity had once tried its own war criminals centuries ago. The location was deliberate. Earth wanted everyone to see that justice applied equally, whether you were human or alien. Laura Bennett's husband, David, sat in the courtroom every single day. Next to him were Katie and Tommy, now 13 and 9. They'd asked to attend, to see the man who'd killed their mother face consequences for what he'd done. The courtroom was packed with observers from 40 different species. News networks broadcast every moment across the galaxy. This wasn't just about one murder. This was about whether the rules of civilization meant anything. The prosecution was led by Attorney General Patricia Morrison, a woman who'd spent 30 years putting war criminals behind bars. She was methodical, calm, and absolutely ruthless when it came to presenting evidence. The first piece of evidence was the footage. Laura Bennett extending her hand in greeting. Vector drawing his weapon. The shot. Laura falling. It played on every screen in the courtroom. Katie turned away, but David made himself watch. He'd watched 100 times already, but he watched it again. "That," Patricia said quietly, "is where this case begins. An unarmed diplomat on neutral ground, murdered in cold blood by the leader of a foreign government. Over the next 3 weeks, she built her case piece by piece. Communications showing Vector had been presented with Earth's peace terms days before the meeting. Analysis proving he'd planned to kill Laura regardless of what she offered. Testimony from Draxian council members who'd witnessed a murder and been horrified by it. Then came the evidence about New Vancouver. Orders bearing Vector's personal authorization. Target civilian population centers. The attack that killed 50,000 people, including children, the elderly, families who'd never done anything to harm the Draxian collective. Vector's defense attorney tried to argue military necessity, cultural differences, the fog of war. But the evidence was overwhelming. The footage didn't lie. The orders existed in Vector's own handwriting. Survivors from New Vancouver testified. Governor Rachel Martinez described watching her city burn while trying to evacuate children. A father named Robert Hayes spoke about losing his wife and 2 daughters in the bombardment. A teacher named Linda Cooper told the court about her students who never made it to the shelters. The defense called no witnesses. What could they say? The crimes were documented. The victims were real. The defendant had shown no remorse. The verdict came back after 40 minutes of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Murder, war crimes, crimes against sapient beings, ordering attacks on civilian populations. The chief judge, a 70-year-old woman named Victoria Grant who'd served on the bench for 40 years, looked at Vector with cold eyes. You murdered an unarmed diplomat who came in good faith to offer peace. When your military fractured because they saw the evil of your actions, you ordered an attack on civilians as revenge. You valued your pride over millions of lives. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the courtroom. This court sentences you to life imprisonment under Earth custody. You will spend the remainder of your natural life in a maximum security facility, knowing that your actions destroyed your own civilization. You will live with the knowledge that Draxian children will grow up learning that your name means shame, not honor. Some people thought it was too lenient. Others argued it was worse than execution, forcing Vector to live with what he'd done for decades. David didn't care which it was. His wife was still dead. His children still didn't have a mother. But at least the man who'd killed her would never hurt anyone again. The Draxian collective formally dissolved 2 months later. The species fractured into independent colonies, each desperate to distance themselves from what Vector had done. Commander Krentalk became the primary liaison between Earth and the former collective territories. Earth didn't demand tribute, didn't occupy worlds, didn't force the Draxians into servitude. Instead, they offered something unexpected: help rebuilding. Captain Brandon Walsh found himself overseeing reconstruction efforts on Praxis 7, the same planet his fleet had bombarded 6 months earlier. Earth engineers worked alongside Draxian civilians to rebuild the industrial infrastructure, but this time for peaceful purposes. Why? A young Draxian worker asked him one day. They were standing in the ruins of a factory that Brandon's ships had destroyed. Why help us after everything we did? Brandon thought about Laura Bennett, about her belief that peace was possible even after 15 years of war, about how she died trying to save people on both sides. Because your leader started the war, not you. Laura Bennett came to bring peace to everyone. She failed because one man valued his pride over lives. But her message didn't die with her. He looked at the Draxian worker. We're going to have peace, even if we had to destroy a government to get it. 10 years passed. A memorial was unveiled on Haven's rest station, on the exact spot where Laura had been murdered. The statue showed her extending her hand in friendship, just as she had in her final moments. The inscription was written in both English and Draxian. She came in peace. They answered with violence. And the galaxy learned that humanity's mercy has limits, but their memory does not. Laura's daughter Katie, now 23, had followed her mother into diplomatic service. She spoke at the memorial ceremony, her voice steady despite the emotion. My mother believed in peace. She died trying to achieve it. The war that followed wasn't what she wanted. But sometimes peace has to be enforced. Sometimes you have to break those who refuse it so completely that they never threaten it again. She looked at the assembled crowd. Humans, Draxians, dozens of other species. We didn't start that war, but we ended it, and we did it in a way that honored my mother's memory. We destroyed the war machine, but we protected the people. We punished the guilty, but we helped the innocent rebuild. Admiral Cole, now retired, stood in the crowd listening. He thought about the 6 months of devastation Earth had unleashed. The installations destroyed. The fleets obliterated. The Empire dismantled piece by piece. Was it worth it? Had Laura's death been avenged or just compounded by more death? He didn't have an easy answer, but he knew this. In the 10 years since the war ended, not a single Earth diplomat had been harmed. Not one peace negotiation had been refused. Not one species had decided that killing Earth's peacemakers was worth the consequences. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson. You could fight humanity in honorable war, and they'd respond with honor. But kill their diplomats, murder their peacemakers, attack their civilians, and they'd show you what war really meant. Laura Bennett had come in peace. They'd answered with violence. And humanity had made sure the entire galaxy understood what that cost. The end.